And he just didn't get it. And that's when she uttered that famous line in her speech that night, "Poor George, he couldn't help it. He was born with a silver foot in his mouth." George Bush ended up winning the 1988 presidential election, and he became our nation's 41st president. The day after the election, Ann Richards sent him a telegram congratulating him on his victory. About a week later, she received a handwritten thank you note from the president, thanking her for his telegram, and he also enclosed a small gift. It was a peace offering, if you will. It was a lapel pin in the shape of a silver foot. Now, Ann Richards capitalized on her newfound fame and celebrity, and she became governor of Texas in 1990. She campaigned on a platform of equality, and when she was governor, she appointed more women and minorities to state positions than any other governor ever before. She even alluded to that in her speech in Atlanta. Women, given the opportunity, they can perform. After all, Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did. She just did it backwards and in high heels. So for the next 2 years, the transplanted Texan up in the White House and the native Texan in the governor's mansion had plenty of opportunity to cross paths. George Bush maintained a home in Houston. He came here frequently. And as governor, she would meet him at the airport. She often wore that little pin in the shape of a silver foot. Finally, one day, she's getting ready to meet the president. She's getting herself all dolled up, and she's putting that little lapel pin on. And one of her aides said, "Governor Richards, don't you think you keep adding insult to injury by always wearing that little pin?" And she looked at her aide and she said, "Oh no, a woman always wears the jewelry a man gave her, especially when he's coming to visit." Now, despite their differences, I think they actually had a lot in common. George Bush was a one-term US president. He lost his bid for re-election in 1992. Ann Richards was a one-term Texas governor. She lost her bid for re-election in 1994. George Bush did some great things for this country. He signed into law the Americans with Disabilities Act, and he used his deft communication and diplomacy skills to bring about a peaceful resolution to the Cold War in Europe. Nevertheless, the country was mired in an economic recession when he left office. Ann Richards did some great things for Texas. She cleaned up the air in Houston, and she even signed a bill into law banning concealed weapons. Nevertheless, she saw the prison population here explode under her watch. Ann Richards was the first to go. She got diagnosed with a cancer of the esophagus. Those years of hard drinking, hard smoking finally caught up with her. She sought treatment here in Houston at MD Anderson Cancer Center, and she even participated in a clinical trial. She said later that participating in a clinical trial is a lot like planting a tree. You're not going to benefit from a clinical trial, but hopefully someone down the road will. Just like planting a tree. You're not going to benefit from its shade, but hopefully someone down the road will. She died on September 13, 2006, and she is buried in the State Cemetery in Austin. Now, George Bush outlived her 12 years. Do y'all remember when he made that pledge to the American public? Read my lips, no new taxes. Then he raised taxes anyways. He told his official biographer that although he meant it at the time, he later regretted it. Because when you're forced with shutting down the government or working with a hostile Congress controlled by Democrats and to raise taxes, you work with the Democrats and you raise taxes. If you can't make those hard calls, you have no place in business, in politics. George Bush died on November 30th, 2018, and he is buried in a little bitty cemetery close to the eponymous Bush Library on the campus of Texas A&M University. Now, in my opinion, these two Texans showed me how politicians are supposed to act. Sure, you squabble in public, but in private, you get together, you roll up your sleeves, and you get work done to make life good for people in Texas and in the United States. And to me, that is the lesson of leadership of George Bush and Ann Richards. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. Great speech. Madam Timer, if we can have just 90 seconds, if you hit me with the green at 90, and I'll let the club know that we've reached the time for your written notes to David. Remember, pace and engaging. I turn it over to Victoria Travash. Vicki?
Thank you so much, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, especially David. David, thank you for this speech today, Anne and George. Let's start with your title. Excellent title. Didn't give away too much, was short, and you immediately got into it. Very helpful. Your opening, when you said, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, this was super interesting because I think that was the beginning of Anne's speech. We often say thank you in Toastmasters, and I wasn't sure. To add to that, give it the old twang. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And that will help us know, because very quickly we found out you were giving us a quote. That was well done. I love the way that I didn't love this part. I forgot to start the recording. And I was waiting for you to take a second so that I could add it, and it worked. But more importantly, as speakers, things happen all the time that we are not expecting. And you handled it without missing a beat. That is as important as everything else you're trying to do. Really, really was impressed. I loved your structure. This speech had a great structure. You went from Anne to George, back to Anne, back to George. It felt very tight, and I could really follow, because the thing that we were looking for was, did you hold my attention and it wasn't engaging? Absolutely. Both, very much so through that. I've never heard this speech from you, but you did something. I know you as a speaker. You used your voice really well, not only in accents, but also in pitch and volume. That was very effective. Good repeat of someone else will. Repeating something really anchors it. Love that. Some things I want you to work on. Your hand movements. They weren't as purposeful. When you talk about the silver lapel pin, place it right here. It's imaginary, but I see the pin when you place it here, and it reminds me what a lapel pin is and where it goes. That would have been excellent too. You are pointing at us. We're taught not to point. Open your hand and hold it out. You've seen that versus this. This is, you're right, but it feels not as effective. Now, here's what I want you to watch. Are you standing or sitting? Sitting. I love this. Sitting.
Sitting, yes.
The problem with sitting, you're rocking. You're rocking back and forth. If you're standing, you can move forward, but it's not a rocking motion. When you go back and watch the video, as I said, always watch the video without sound and watch your body movements. See what you find unnecessary or unhelpful. Stay in the frame. You're a little high right now. I can't see the top of your head. So either move that's better. Now, if you want to be closer, just get your camera closer and make sure you don't go out of frame. Final, ending. No call to action for us. Great ending of the speech, but make a call to action, something like, I want you to think about lessons of leadership and how you can make sure no one ever gives you a lapel pin with a silver foot on it. Fellow Toastmasters.